special report this hour. Journalist Webster Tarpley, a monthly contributor to this program, has his own program, of course, and has written extensively over the years about politics in these United States, has been watching the story of Larry Sinclair and his allegations of, shall we say, impropriety against Senator Barack Obama, which go back to 1999. Mr. Sinclair held a news conference today at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. Webster lives not far from there and went over as a journalist to take a look-see to find out what the turnout was like, to see how Mr. Sinclair handled himself, etc. And he's here tonight to give us a report. Hi, Webster. Welcome back. And how did it look?
Well, thank you, Jeff. I think this was an extremely important event, something that people should pay very close attention to for any number of reasons, because it poses questions about Obama and the presidency and the tremendous danger, I think, that faces this country, and also about the question of legality in the United States today, since Larry Sinclair was arrested by U.S. Marshals, it is reported. As soon as the press conference was over, he was basically hauled away on some warrant, it is believed. Now, I don't know any of the details of that because that happened when I was still inside the Holman Lounge of the National Press Club where the press conference had been held. Larry Sinclair walked out first for security reasons. It's one of those things, if you've ever been in these things where the president comes in, and they say, now, once we're finished, everybody keep your seats because this, the party from the dais is going to leave. Mm-hmm. So that's what happened in this case. So by the time I got outside, according to things that I've read after the fact, I'm not an eyewitness to this, he had been taken away. In other words, Gestapo tactics, 3 blocks from the White House, in the midst of the most august temple of freedom of the press. You now see the U.S. Marshals working for whom? Not for a Republican administration, not for Bush and Cheney, but as a wing of the Obama campaign. Working, I would say, for Zbigniew Brzezinski, Rockefeller, that faction, the trilateral group.
This is particularly disturbing to me to hear about this because, as you well know, and many of you listening well know, if you've been watching the story, Larry Sinclair received the most outrageous, vicious, vile death threat I have ever seen in print on the Internet. And just to update you on this, Larry reported that he contacted the FBI, which assigned an agent, a woman agent, to look into this. She apparently went to the D.C. police. The death threat originated in D.C., and according to what I'm told, was able to go with D.C. police to the location and identify the individual who made the threat. This was not just a hint. This was an overt, you're dead, faggot kind of a death threat. The D.C. police decided to do nothing to this individual, nor did the FBI. And yet Larry Sinclair now, when he walks out of a news conference, is nabbed on some outstanding warrant somewhere, and it smells, obviously.
It's reportedly, I can't confirm it, I'm just looking at different websites who claim that they were eyewitnesses to the arrest. U.S. Marshals backed up by D.C. police, so the D.C. police could come against
him,
Larry, not
but
to
not
defend
to
him,
investigate.
But to arrest him. And a
geez.
Delaware warrant. Now, let's not get the wrong idea. This press conference was hugely successful. It was an extremely important and substantive event.
Wow.
It was held in the Holman Lounge. It had originally been scheduled for the Lisagor room, which is a much smaller and much less well-constructed room because it's got a funny shape to it, as we found out later in the afternoon. The Holman Lounge was packed. I was not sure I could get in. 100 people, I would say, 10 cameras on tripods, and then I don't know how many handheld cameras, cell phone cameras, tape recordings were going.
Sounds like a major event for sure.
A major event. It was attended. There was a delegation from New York City, from Harlem, the Reverend James David Manning, and a delegation from his church, one of the biggest churches in Harlem.
They came down, huh? Wow.
They were there. Manning did not speak, but Sinclair acknowledged him early on in the press conference.
Manning spoke on this program at great length,
Precisely, and he had come there apparently for moral support and brought this sizable contingent from his church. Again, the room was absolutely full. People remember Jeff Gannon, who had been in the White House press corps.
He was there.
I think I recognized him.
That's amazing.
Behind me was a line of Republican ladies, some of them elderly, but one of them who puts out a daily email alert service to evangelical Christians. So the word is going to go out quite far and wide. Now, it was therefore very, very well attended. There were people from Britain. There were people from Germany, or at least the German-speaking area. There were 2 or 3 questioners who seemed to be from Asia, from India, or from China, Japan, South Korea. Hard to tell. Maybe one flaw of the way that this was run was that the news organizations didn't have to identify themselves. The reporters didn't say their names and their affiliations. But other than that, it was again, extremely businesslike, extremely dignified. There had been attempts, of course, to threaten disruption. The Obama lemming legions and Kool-Aid cultists had threatened all manner of mayhem, as you pointed out. There was not a ripple of this. The questions were not inflammatory or in any way insulting, or it was all businesslike. It was all factual. There were some little moments of innuendo, but this really didn't get very far.
And Mr.
Everybody who wanted to ask a question got to ask a question. You were allowed to follow up a little bit, but there was, when an Obamazoid attempted to begin harassment through a series of follow-ups, then that was immediately shut down, and that really only began to flicker into the hall at maybe 1 or 2 different points. So, in general, it was extremely businesslike, and the job got done. And the job is now that a tremendous accusation has been launched against this person who wants to get his hands on the thermonuclear button in the White House, somebody who wants your votes. He's asking for your votes and your support to be president of the United States, and he's told you almost nothing about himself. And here we now have a citizen who comes forward and tells you something about it. Now,
Larry Sinclair, excuse me, but Larry Sinclair was the man at the front of the room, telling his story, right, answering the questions. He basically one addition, of course, is that Montgomery Blair Sibley, his lawyer, was also there. Now, Montgomery Blair Sibley, this is also a very interesting person. He had been, of course, the lawyer for Mrs. Palfrey, the D.C. madam, I believe at the beginning of her case. I don't know how long Montgomery Blair Sibley was on the case, but now Montgomery Blair, for history buffs, you remember that this was the Postmaster General in the Abraham Lincoln cabinet that approved the Emancipation Proclamation back in 1862-63. So this is a family here, and it's the Montgomery Blairs of Silver Spring. You can see there, where their mansion used to be in Maryland here, and he presided, and he took the microphone around, and again, there was not a ripple of disruption, nor was there any screaming or yelling or insults or innuendo. Now, let me try to give a summary of what went on. First of all, Larry Sinclair answered every question straight. I think he gave a decent, honest answer to questions. He didn't dodge them. He didn't bobble. He didn't fumble. I think you could compare him quite favorably to any number of politicians in terms of the honesty and also in the technical ability to answer these questions. The first thing Larry told you about himself is that he's a former recreational drug user, drug trafficker, a convicted felon, convicted of forgery, bad checks, and theft by check, and an American who loves his country and who cannot stay silent regarding Barack Obama, knowing what he knows. And he's there to discharge his obligation as a citizen and to witness this knowledge to you and to raise questions that others, in other words, the great news organizations represented in the room or listening in, because this was all on a feed. The entire proceedings were available to the networks through a kind of an automatic setup that the National Press Club has, and which Larry, I believe, had put into action. At least that was what I understood. So it's for others to investigate and consider.